everyone, welcome to the Wonder Cafe, where we talk about board games and I try a new hobby or activity every single week to encourage you to try something new. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get to talking about this week's theme, and it is a cozy theme. So for this week, the game I am going to review is Creature Comforts. Now, it is published by KTBG Games and is designed and illustrated by Roberta Taylor, and I'm probably going to butcher this. I'm terrible with names, but Shawana Tenney. I'm so sorry, just in advance. Anywho, it plays, player count is 1 to 5 players. It plays at about 45 minutes to 60, depending on if you're playing solo or with multiple people. At solo, it took me about 45 minutes to play. With multiple people, it took me about a little over an hour to play. So, the goal of this game is to collect the most resources and items and improvements to make your home the coziest den or home before the winter. And whoever has the most points or makes their home the coziest is the winner. So let's get into a brief overview of this game. You play over several rounds, which are called months, and you are going to essentially have your own personal dice, and you are going to roll those dice, those 2 dice, and whatever the number comes up as is set for that round. Then you're going to place your 4 workers out onto the 12 spaces it has on the board. Now, the cool part about this worker placement is at every single place you go has resources or improvements or cards and comforts that you can collect, but are dependent on what your numbers are for your dice. So when you roll your dice, you only know what 2 of the dice are going to be. There are 4 other dice that you will roll that are called the village dice after you have placed your workers. And so this kind of almost gives you a push your luck kind of, because you may have in your hand comforts or improvements that require wood and apples, and you go to that place hoping and kind of crossing your fingers you're going to get that resource at this particular place. And then once you roll your dice, the village dice, then you are going to basically resolve your workers depending on what the dice is. Now, some places you may have put your workers, you may not be able to get or resolve your worker there, and so you get these little bonuses that allow you to change the number on the dice in future rounds, which I think is pretty cool. But it also kind of stinks because that is the push your luck fun part about this game that changes your normal typical worker placement, and it has such a unique feel to it when you do this, and I love it so much. And after you have resolved your workers and taken all of the dice back, then the round or month is over, and you're going to rotate everything on the board. So everything basically changes. 1 card gets taken away from the comforts in the owl's nest, and your traveler, which changes up, is going to change. Your improvements, you're going to lose an improvement and gain an improvement. The 2 cards or 4 spots up in the valley are going to change too, and they are going to have different resources this next coming round. So everything is changing, including the river, and that makes the game unique too, and I love that. So let's talk about pros. So the first pro that I have about this game is the time. The time about this game is like the sweet spot for me personally. It has the time frame of about an hour, and after a long day, I don't want to play a 2 to 3 hour long game. Don't get me wrong, those are super awesome games to play, but I just don't get those to the table very often. So the game that I kind of lean towards is a 45 minute to 60 minute game, and so this game is right in that sweet spot. Especially when I want to just play solo. The time about this is about 45 minutes when you're playing solo, and that is just perfect for me. Now, the production quality in this game is so cute. The illustrations are these little tiny creatures, and they each have like their own little costumes, as you can see here, and all of these little tiny resources are in the game. So you have apples, and you are collecting to make bread and sweaters and socks, and it's just so cute. And I think their production quality of this game is fantastic. It's just, the illustrations are just amazing. Now, another thing about the production quality is the meeples. The meeples are super cute and adorable, and it's not just wood. These little critters actually have like a sticker face on them that comes with the base model, which is what I have. And I think that is so cute, cool and unique that it's just not a cutout of a wooden meeple. It's got its own little, I don't know, picture on it, I would say. The next thing is the theme. Of course, I mean, who doesn't want to be cute little adorable creatures going through the woods, collecting resources, the coziest home and collecting the most resources? I mean, that is just freaking adorable. I think the theme is great, and I think it would appeal to all different kinds of people, honestly. The next thing is the replayability. This is a pro because this game changes up every single round. So you may have a resource that you're going for this round, such as you need mushrooms this round. And so you place your worker out, of course, hoping that you're going to get mushrooms because you need that in order to complete a card or an improvement. And you end up not getting it. Well, everything is swiped kind of off the board. Everything is like refresh. So that one spot that you may have been going for this round that you didn't get isn't going to be there the next round. So I think the replayability of this game is fantastic because you may have to change up how you get those mushrooms the next round, or you may have to just completely give up on getting that card, which I think is great, you know? So, and then everything changes. So like you're gonna have different travelers coming through that may affect it, that all month long, you know, you can get 2 wood in the valley, or you can get an extra lesson learned. The next one would be the solo. So most games, especially a lot of kind of bigger games like this, have a solo variant, and the solo variant tends to be completely different, and you're playing against an AI and you don't really get the same feel as if you were playing with somebody else. And so the solo variant kind of falls flat a little bit to me, and I love playing solo. So sometimes when I find a solo game and I'm just playing against an AI, it's not really that much fun. And sometimes it's kind of like a completely different twist to the game just to accommodate the AI, which kind of makes the game a completely different game when you play with multiple players. This game is not the case. This game plays exactly the same as if it were multiplayer, and I love that. Hits all of the marks for me because when I play this game, I enjoy it at multiplayer and I enjoy it when I'm playing solo. And when you're playing at multiplayer, you're almost playing kind of solo already because nothing is really going to affect, like nobody can steal your resources, nobody, you know, everybody can go to the same spots, so everyone's kind of doing their own thing, which makes it so, you know, easy to play this game when you're playing solo too. And it's the exact same as the solo variant, which for me is kind of rare in most games, honestly. So the next thing I would say is this definitely is a family game. I can see, you know, playing with younger kids, obviously not too young because it can get a little complex, not too bad, but you can definitely play with multiple family members, and it's pretty straightforward to teach. It's very streamlined. Like when you play this game, it is straightforward. You're gonna do the exact same thing every single time. You may not resolve your workers the same way, but you're gonna do the same steps every time, and that makes it very teachable for new gamers or people who love games and can pick up a game really quick, or teaching it to a kid. So I will say this is a fantastic family game. Now, I've talked a lot about the pros. Let's talk about the cons of this game. Now, I wouldn't even say this is a con because I love everything about this game, and I can't even say enough how amazing this game is. But I do have kind of one little con that almost is a love-hate relationship with this game. And my con would be there are so many little tiny little resources. And I think it's only a con just because it's kind of a pain to put away and get out. And I don't have enough game trays or little tiny trays. Like, I have trays, but I don't need a massive tray for every single resource. It's just a little too much for me. So I just lay them out on the table. But to put it away can kind of be like a little tedious and kind of like, okay, open up the bag, put the resources in. But I will say kind of a pro to that, or happy side of that, or good side of that, is the fact that having all of those resources make the game fantastic. Because you don't, when you play with just 3 resources on your game board and you're trying to, you know, collect cards so you can play the cards by having those resources, generally you can kind of grab a bunch of cards, and since you only have 3 resources, you're probably going to have a stockpile of those 3 resources already. So playing cards is a lot easier to play. Whereas if you have more than 3 or 5, and like this game you have several resources, it changes it because every card is unique and requires a certain, like, it could have an apple, a log, a mushroom, and then on another card it has a wheat and, you know, a rock and a coin, and coins are harder to make along with books. Books are harder to, you know, grab as a resource. And so when you're playing the game, it makes it harder to play the cards, especially with the fact that you have that kind of push your luck when you are playing your meeples. So I would say that having more resources is actually a pro. It's just the only thing I don't like about the game is having to put it away or put it out, and you have these little tiny resources out there. I don't even know if they could even fix that, to be completely honest. So I guess in my opinion, there's not really any cons to this game. So my overall review on this game is it is fantastic. And if all of these things hit your marks, or all of these pros hit your marks too, like you like a 45 to an hour game, or you like playing solo, I would definitely recommend this game. It is fantastic, and I can see myself playing this game over and over and over again, especially with friends and family. I think this game would hit a lot of marks with people. Check marks. I think this game would hit a lot of check marks with people. So that is my review, and since my theme was cozy this week, it is now time to talk about my random activity or hobby I chose to do based on the theme of creature comforts, which is the cozy theme. And for this week, I chose to do making homemade pizza. I thought, you know, homemade bread, there's bread on there, which is great, but I can't really see my family just eating a whole loaf of bread for dinner. So I kind of was like, bread, what else is kind of like bread? And I was like, oh, pizza, that's kind of cozy. Like, you know, you want to relax, have a nice pizza. I mean, that just sounds amazing to me, and I think it would hit all the marks with my family too. Having a kid, you can't really just be like, here's bread. I mean, it is kind of like his favorite thing, so I guess there is a pro to that. But anywho, so I made pizza dough. And for my recipe, I got this, of course, on YouTube from Natasha's Kitchen. And then for the actual pizza, such as the toppings, I chose to go onto the roasted root, which I chose to make hummus flatbread sun-dried tomato with pesto. That is a freaking mouthful. But trust me, it is amazing. I also added mozzarella to that recipe too. So I just, with the feta cheese, I added the mozzarella. Now you don't have to do this at all. You can just make a regular pizza however you want with marinara sauce. We also made 2 pizzas. So we made one that was kind of the fancy pizza, and then we made just a regular cheese pizza for our little one, and he loved it. So just a quick little review on that. I have 5 things that I learned from this experience. The first thing is I learned that there is a difference between instant yeast and active dry yeast. I did not know that there was a difference at all. I thought yeast was yeast. Yeast is yeast. Yeast is yeast. Sounds weird saying. Anywho, but there is a difference. So when you make this recipe, make sure you pay attention to that. Make sure that you are paying attention and grabbing the right ingredient at the store, or it can change how your dough sets and all different kinds of stuff. It just is different. Like one you don't have to set in water, whereas another one you do. So the next thing that I learned was use warm water, not hot water, because apparently hot water kills, or hot temperatures kill the yeast. I didn't know that happened, but apparently it does. The same thing goes with proofing. When after you have made your dough and you've kneaded it and everything, and you put it in a container to make it rise, you don't want to put it in a warm area, because if you put it in a warm area, the same thing happens. It can kill the yeast. You don't want the temperature to get above, I think, 110. I honestly just felt the water and made sure it didn't burn my hand, or it was too cold on my hand, and just put that, and it worked just fine. The next thing is kneading the bread. So kneading the bread is where you go underneath the bread, you flip it over, and you press it down. Like if you've ever seen any old time movies where they're in the kitchen and there's always some person or some lady in there flipping the dough and pushing it down and working that dough. That's called kneading. And actually what that does is makes your dough or your bread or your pizza fluffy. It gives it the fluffiness to it. So if you don't knead it and work the bread, it doesn't rise to be that fluffy. It just kind of falls flat. The next thing is to make the dough ahead. I thought that I would be having pizza the night that I made pizza dough in the morning. I was mistaken. Apparently you have to let it sit overnight, and I know that sounds like a long time when you say you have to do like a day of cooking. It's really not that bad. Honestly, it takes like 10-15 minutes to make the dough, and then like 5-10 minutes to work the dough, and then you just let it sit and you put it in the fridge, and that's like it. Okay, it's so simple. And then you have the dough ready for you when you actually make the pizza. The last thing that I learned, or I figured and wanted to try, was I figured most people didn't have a pizza stone. So I figured most people would have a cookie sheet, and you can most certainly make your pizza on the you can make your pizza on the cookie sheet. It just isn't as crisp as if you were to make it on a pizza stone. So if you have a pizza stone, highly recommend using it. If you don't and you have a cookie sheet, it'll work just fine. It just won't be as crisp kind of in the center part, and it's not going to be like doughy or chewy or anything. It's just not crisp all the way around. It's just it works just fine. Honestly, it works just fine. There's hardly a difference. Now, when you are using a pizza stone, the thing that I learned was you need to preheat it, because if you don't preheat it at like your maximum setting on your oven, then it's not going to heat evenly for your pizza dough. So that is what I learned. I am going to make pizza dough constantly, because holy guacamole sauce, that was amazing. My kid inhaled it, I inhaled it, and it was just a huge hit in my family. So that was my new hobby or experience this week, and I loved it. I actually loved working with my hands, and I hope this encourages you to go out and try something completely different. And if you want to start anywhere, you can go ahead and start by making pizza dough, because it's fantastic and it's so easy. It's so easy. And Anywho, so that is all. If you like this video, if you like what you saw and you want to see more, go ahead and like and subscribe below. And thank you, and I hope everybody has a wonderful week.